A couple who has dived together for over a decade as buddies decided to go spearfishing in Cozumel, Mexico. After a life-threatening incident some months ago, the husband suddenly lost consciousness while spearfishing. His hope for survival lies in how fast his wife can get him to the surface before it's too late. Cozumel is a highly desirable place for divers and spearfishers all over the world. Spearfishing in Cozumel is an exceptional experience that stands out. Most spearfishing spots in Cozumel are just a short 20-minute boat ride away from the shore, and it's considered one of the top 5 diving locations in the world. This is because of the unique geographical position, where the beautiful Mesoamerican Reef is situated between the mainland's coastline and the island's coastline. You can enjoy breathtaking views, peaceful waters, and a rich variety of marine life in caves, shipwrecks, and exciting drop-off points. Your spearfishing experience in Cozumel will depend on your skill level. You can choose to fish at different depths along the coast, or venture out into deeper waters. The deep water areas are filled with caves and shipwrecks, which attract more fish and provide opportunities for experienced spearfishers. What makes Cozumel even more remarkable is the excellent visibility due to bright sunlight and clear waters, even at significant depths. The depth ranges from 20 to 100 feet, making it suitable for spearfishers of all levels of expertise. You encounter a variety of fish to catch, such as African pompano, triggerfish, rainbow runner, amberjack, barracuda, snapper, lionfish, grouper, wahoo, mahi-mahi, and many others. Duke Owen, a 59-year-old high school geography teacher, and his wife Becky, 47, had been happily married for 18 years. They shared a deep love for diving and had been diving buddies for 12 years. Duke was renowned among his students for his passion as a teacher, always finding creative ways to make geography come alive. Over the years, they had already explored numerous caves in the United States, with each dive bringing them closer together and strengthening their bond. Diving had become an integral part of their lives. During their diving adventures, Duke and Becky discovered the world of spearfishing. Intrigued by this unique activity, they decided to give it a try. It quickly became another shared interest, and they eagerly embraced the sport, diving into it with enthusiasm whenever they had the opportunity. Spearfishing allowed them to combine their love for diving with the excitement of hunting underwater. It added a new level of challenge and skill to their underwater experiences. To celebrate their wedding anniversary, Duke and Becky had gone to one of their favorite places, Cozumel, for 2 weeks of diving. They had completed a series of 4 dives over 5 days. The following day, Becky was feeling sick, so she opted out of diving. However, Duke did 2 dives alone. After Becky's health improved, she was ready to continue their underwater exploration with Duke. This time their chosen activity was spearfishing. They made sure they had all the necessary equipment before embarking on their underwater journey. Sensing the possibility of the water being warmer than anticipated, they decided to wear thin wetsuits to protect themselves. Due to the depths they intended to explore, they equipped themselves with fins, spear guns, and a complete scuba set. Their first day of spearfishing began quite promisingly. The duo eagerly dived into the depths. However, after approximately 20 minutes into their dive, a concerning incident occurred. Becky realized that Duke became deeply oblivious to his surroundings, and he remained stationed at the bottom of the ocean, approximately 140 feet below the surface. Clutching his spear gun, Duke didn't see Becky's repeated signals, urging him to ascend and return to the surface. However, Becky realized that Duke was unresponsive and unaware of the time spent or the signals being conveyed to him. Concerned for her husband's well-being, Becky extended her hand in front of Duke's face, desperately hoping for a response that never came. Although Duke appeared to be conscious, he remained unresponsive to his wife's attempts to communicate with him. Drawing from her knowledge and experience, Becky determined that Duke might be suffering from nitrogen narcosis, a condition that affects divers at certain depths. She resorted to physically grabbing him, initiating their ascent to the surface. Not forgetting decompression stops, Becky guided Duke through the necessary procedures. They first completed a stop at a depth of 30 feet for 5 minutes. Subsequently, they proceeded to a shallower point, reaching 15 feet, where they remained for another 5 minutes, allowing their bodies to gradually adjust to the changing pressure. Observing Duke's dive computer, Becky noticed that it displayed a decompression obligation, indicating that he required additional time at specific depths before safely resurfacing. Seeing that Duke's dive profile required a longer decompression stop, Becky grew increasingly concerned about his well-being. However, circumstances prevented them from fully fulfilling their decompression obligations, as both divers realized that they would soon unexpectedly run out of air before completing the necessary procedures. So they went back to the surface immediately. Once they finally resurfaced, Duke's memory of the dive remained intact, and he recalled every detail with remarkable clarity. Astonishingly, he expressed no complaints or discomfort despite the challenging circumstances they had encountered. Shortly after surfacing, Duke developed a headache with lightheadedness, dizziness, nausea, and vomiting. 40 minutes after surfacing, he was unable to stand or walk. Seeing the urgency of Duke's condition, the authorities swiftly placed him on surface-level oxygen after they had resurfaced. However, despite the gravity of his symptoms, a notable delay occurred before Duke could be transported to a local hospital by the emergency medical services. This delay, which lasted for approximately 1.5 hours, stemmed from Duke's initial denial regarding the severity of his health. Duke repeatedly requested that the responders grant him just 10 more minutes with the oxygen, hoping that his discomfort would subside. However, Becky was deeply concerned for her husband's well-being and felt uneasy about allowing Duke to remain without a proper medical assessment. Seeing the potential risks associated with delaying professional medical intervention, she firmly insisted that Duke be transported to the hospital without further delay. The EMS personnel eventually agreed to transport him to the hospital. Duke's condition continued to decline after he arrived at the hospital, to the point that he had to be intubated and placed on a ventilator. Initial presentations at the hospital included hyperglycemia and hypotension. The diver was diagnosed with decompression sickness, and he was transferred to another hospital that has hyperbaric treatment. After intensive treatment, he was successfully removed from the ventilator 9 days after the accident. On day 15, he was discharged from the hospital. Their vacation came to an abrupt end following the incident that occurred. However, after 3 months, Duke proposed the idea of returning to Cozumel once more. His desire to dive underwater had grown tremendously since the unfortunate incident they had encountered. Despite Becky's efforts to persuade him to postpone the dive for a later date, Duke remained resolute in his decision, assuring her that he was perfectly fine. Seeing Duke's determination, they planned to dive into the Florida Keys. On this particular expedition, they were accompanied by a group of fellow divers who would stay on the boat. However, among the assembled divers, it was only Becky who would dive alongside Duke. The rest of the group were support divers, ready to assist as needed, anchored approximately 70 miles offshore. Before diving into the depths, Duke and Becky prepared for the dive. By taking 5 to 7 minutes to engage in a series of deep inhalations and exhalations on the water's surface, they ensured their lungs were filled with oxygen. With their minds focused and their bodies prepared, Duke and Becky descended to a depth range of 75 to 100 feet. Their primary objective was to spearfish. However, despite their efforts, their search proved fruitless within the first few minutes. Suddenly, Duke signaled to Becky that he needed to ascend to the surface. He was feeling uncomfortable. However, he gestured to Becky, encouraging her to continue her dive without him. Becky carefully observed Duke's ascent, her gaze following his upward movement until he disappeared from view. With Duke now safely almost on the surface, Becky directed her attention back to her original purpose, to search for fish. However, as Duke ascended closer to the surface, about 10 feet away, his vision became blurry and he began to lose focus. In the blink of an eye, Duke stopped being conscious and slipped away without any prior indication of distress. Unaware of Duke's sudden loss of consciousness, Becky remained engrossed. Suddenly, her side vision caught a glimpse of something out of the ordinary, a flash of white, the handle of her husband's spear gun strangely slipping past him. It was at that moment she realized something was gravely amiss. Duke, now sinking head first, was unconscious and convulsing. He had drifted to a distance of approximately 60 feet away from her. Fear gripped Becky as she instantly discarded her weight belt to go to her husband's aid. Without hesitation, she moved forward, with her gaze fixed on reaching Duke's side. Becky simultaneously deployed her spear gun, skillfully aiming and firing at the drowning Duke. Luckily, the spear successfully found its mark, penetrating one of Duke's long blade fins. Having secured her connection to Duke, Becky quickly ascended to the surface. Immediately, she relayed the dire situation to the others on the boat, instructing them to cut the anchor line and retrieve Duke's shaft so he could be brought to the surface. After a frantic rescue operation, Duke was brought to the surface, emerging from the depths after 3 to 4 minutes underwater. However, the sight that greeted Becky was nothing short of horrifying. Duke's body displayed alarming signs of trauma and distress. Blood seeped from his eyes, ears, nose, and mouth, and a small amount of frothy sputum oozed from his lips. It was evident that his condition was critical and required immediate attention. To remove the fluid within Duke's airway, he was gently turned onto his side, allowing the fluid to drain. Although he initially showed no signs of breathing, a faint pulse could still be detected, giving them hope. Just as the rescue team was about to commence resuscitation efforts, Duke exhibited a small yet significant sign of life, a feeble fist clenching, signaling the beginning of a slow, progressive series of efforts to regain consciousness. But Duke remained unresponsive for a total of 15 to 20 minutes. The boat raced towards the shore. Finally, 45 minutes after the initial incident, a Coast Guard helicopter arrived, set to transport Duke to a land-based hospital for specialized medical care. Tragically, despite the immediate efforts during the rescue and subsequent resuscitation attempts, Duke's life could not be saved. Every endeavor to revive him ultimately proved unsuccessful, leaving Becky devastated and torn apart by grief. A subsequent autopsy revealed Duke had an underlying medical condition. The painful truth became evident. Duke had lost his life while pursuing his passion, an endeavor that had brought him immeasurable joy and fulfillment. His untimely passing stood as a reminder of the risks involved in the pursuit of one's deepest desires and the unpredictability that life sometimes presents, especially for lovers of the extreme sport of diving. Becky was left to deal with the void left by Duke's absence, forever haunted by the knowledge that his dedication to his passion had ultimately cost him his life. We would like to thank you for watching this video. If you enjoyed watching, take a dive on the like and subscribe buttons and hit the bell icon so you get notified when we come back with another exciting diving story.